One, the winds are shifting. The tectonic plates are moving. One day before the first and only presidential debate, firmly in control, Donald Trump. Story number 2, they're eating ducks. They're eating cats. The impact of immigration on America. 3, big weekend for the Will Cain Show. Big weekend for Dak Prescott. 4 years, $240 million, $60 million a year, and delivering a dominant victory by the Dallas Cowboys. Let's break it down with the founder of Super 70 Sports, Ricky Cobb. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, and always on demand. Terrestrial radio, coast to coast and market to market. But always on demand by hitting subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. Also streaming live every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox News' Facebook and Fox News' YouTube page. You can go back and get past episodes of The Will Cain Show on demand by subscribing to The Will Cain Show on YouTube. Big weekend, fellas. We're back. The sounds, the feelings of football. It's back in all of its glory from Friday night through Monday night. Let's take a temperature check. Let's take a temperature check, boys. Okay, who's feeling what? I am the dictator. This is not a democracy. So the emperor will give his ruling. Tinfoil Pat. Low temperature. First day back after an ugly start to the season for Florida State. He bleeds maroon and gold.
How dare you?
The loss of a comeback. The loss in a comeback victory for the Miami Dolphins over America's Pawn Shop, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tough day in Florida. Tough weekend. Tough couple of weeks in Florida for Tinfoil Pat.
It's guarded, by the way.
Only surpassed. Left him speechless. Only surpassed by a worse weekend for our boy Two-A-Days Day. As we learned last weekend in our Friday edition of the Will Cain Show with Andrew Perloff, formerly of the Dan Patrick Show, Two-A-Days Dan, formerly of the Dan Patrick Show, that those inside the circle get to call him Twos. It was like meeting, it's like hanging out with your college friend, and all of a sudden you meet his high school friends, and he's like, he just casually referenced Dan as Twos instead of Two-A-Day. He just said Twos in the course of the podcast, and I was like, yeah. Oh, we always joke around with that with Twos. Yeah, we always do that.
And Dan called me Toozer, was the main one, Toozer.
Okay. Yeah, I totally knew that. I knew that. Yeah, that's exactly what. Yeah, we've been doing that a long time. Awkward reunion between college friends and high school friends. Bad day for Toozer.
Terrible.
Bad weekend for Toozer. Not only did the Green Bay Packers lose on Friday night, they lost their quarterback, and I share in this pain because he's my fantasy quarterback, and at least in one of my leagues. Mm-hmm. Tough for Jordan Love. By the way, what's the update? Quick, the Will Cain Show Fantasy Football League has launched. Bad weekend for me. I'm losing to young establishment James. Who's the Andy McCarthy, Fox News legal analyst, seems to be the big winner so far from the weekend, James. 150 points for our resident legal expert.
Yep, 158 points, had Alvin Kamara, Anthony Richardson, and just a bunch of guys that put up decent points. No one crazy, just across the board. Good.
He just put it on. Who is he beating? Byron Donalds? Congressman Byron Donalds? Is that who he tattooed?
Yeah, Donalds had a respectable week.
Weekend.
Donalds looks like he put up 130 points.
Okay. Congressman comes out shooting. We'll fill you in on the Fantasy Football League, the Will Cain Show Fantasy Football League, and all the different players in that. Probably a little bit more tomorrow. We know nobody cares about your fantasy team. Nobody cares about your fantasy team. But we'll let you know, like, who's doing well and who's doing poorly. We got Andy McCarthy. We got Byron Donalds. We've got A.J. Przinsky, famed MLB player. We got Pete Hegseth. So we got a big pool, 12-team league here at the Will Cain Show. But rough as well for Toozer because Notre Dame just embarrassed.
Dang, man.
Embarrassed this weekend.
What the heck happened?
Rough.
They got to get rid of the coach now at this point. That's brutal.
Already.
Fire.
Marcus Freeman.
Gone.
So, young establishment James may be beating me in fantasy football, but it doesn't bother me because I've had an absolutely dominant week in football. He, for some odd reason, also likes the Texas Longhorns. Huge victory for the Horns. Dominant victory for the Horns over the Michigan Wolverines. And then, to double it down, dominant victory for the Dallas Cowboys over the Cleveland Browns. And it's just perfect as Dak Prescott is our quarterback of the future. $240 million, $60 million a year. I'm in on it. I love it. You got to do it. Got to pay the man. And I know it's controversial. People are like, how dare you pay Dak as the best, player ever in the NFL. I'll tell you what. We're going to bring in Ricky Cobb. He's the host of the Ricky Cobb Show. He's the founder of Super 70 Sports. We're going to break down that, plus Tyreek Hill getting detained, cuffed before games. We're going to break that all down in story number 3 here on the Will Cain Show. Tomorrow is a president pulse of the race. See where we are, because I'm going to tell you something. The pulse is quickening. Things are changing. The temperature is rising. Tectonic plates shifting. Do you need more metaphors? The winds are shifting in the race, and right now it looks like Donald Trump is in control. Story number 1. New York Times Siena poll published this weekend, causing fear and panic within the Democratic Party. Why? Because this New York Times Siena poll shows that for the first time in about a month, Donald Trump is running in front in a national polling average over Kamala Harris. 48 to 47. Now, that is a razor-thin margin, and it is within the margin of error. But within this poll, it also shows that Donald Trump is leading, for example, by 11 points in the Midwest. Let's go to a little bit of context. At this same time in 2020, Joe Biden's lead over Donald Trump was substantial in what ended up being a very, very tight race. And Donald Trump's lead in the Midwest in 20 was less than what this New York Times Siena poll is suggesting his lead is over Kamala Harris. Now, this, I think, does represent, along with the prediction of Nate Silver, who in his latest electoral college model, shows Donald Trump 312, Kamala Harris 226. That would be a landslide victory for Donald Trump. And I think this represents, for the first time in this race, since the departure of Joe Biden, a significant sea change, shift of the winds in the race for president. I'm reading this book right now called The Wager. Now, you know, if you've ever been listening to the Will Cain Show for quite some time, I get fascinated with, I love history. I also am particularly fascinated right now with the age of exploration. I don't know, I've romanticized it. I just finished Wide, Wide Water by Hampton Sides about Captain James Cook. And now I'm reading a book by David Grann, who also wrote The Lost City of Z, called The Wager. And it's about shipwreck, mutiny, murder in the 1740s for a British squadron of ships looking to take on the Spanish Armada. And I have not finished the book, but they have ended up in shipwreck. And part of what I'm fascinated by is how hard it was to get around Tierra del Fuego, like to get around South America. These guys, it took them a month to simply get around the corner. That area of the world, which you may know because I think that maybe it's common knowledge, maybe it's not, but that's where the Pacific meets the Atlantic. And essentially you have uninterrupted seas around the entire globe, from the Pacific to the Atlantic to the Indian, with the Arctic Ocean there, just ripping around before it hits any landmass, never hits any landmass. So you get huge currents, gigantic, 100-foot waves, winds blowing in every direction, temperature changes and storms. And for those sailing on the power of the wind, it's not only a monumental task, it's terrifying. And I think about this when I constantly invoke the metaphor of shifting winds. Because I've romanticized the age of exploration, as part of me is like, that's when men took risks and took adventures. I said to my son last night, who's 16, he's got a lot going on. He's a high school varsity punter and kicker. He's playing ECNL, which is a fairly high level of soccer. He's on this club or that club at school. He's taking pre-cal and physics, and he's just hammered. He's doing way too many nights as a 16-year-olds. 16-year-olds on the ship called the Wager, trying for a month to get around Cape Horn. And in the middle of all that, the entire fleet is afflicted with scurvy. By the way, scurvy, that's 2 books in a row for me now about, sailing in the 1700s. Scurvy killed more people in the British Navy than any particular or cumulative war. Add all the wars together and the tolls taken on the British Navy, it doesn't come close to scurvy. And the description of what scurvy does to you is awful. And it's malnutrition. It's not getting, fruit, vegetables into your diet. Your eyes bulge out, your teeth fall out, your breath goes rancid, your muscles loosen from the bones, you swell, you get delusional, your mind goes, it's horrific. But this is kind of a big tangent, a big aside for the analogy of the shifting winds. Those winds shifting, took them a month to get around Cape Horn. And I do think, on the tortured analogy, that you're seeing a huge wind shift right now in the race for president. It's more subtle than perhaps 100-foot waves and storms off the coast of South America, but it's happened. Riding the wave of the shift from Biden to Harris, riding the wave of the Democratic National Convention, riding the wave of what has been billed, shockingly, it truly is. If you talk to anybody, I have a friend who just spent his weekend on Fire Island, which, Fire Island in New York, you're kind of at the bullseye of the center of far left. The reinvention of Kamala Harris as Barack Obama is complete among the far left, but not so much when it comes to the independent, the middle, and the swing voter. And what you're seeing here when it comes to, for example, Nate Silver or New York Times Siena poll is the casual, independent, swingable voter have their doubts about whether Harris is Obama. For that, by the way, Nate Silver's paid a price. He's being attacked. The Gateway Pundit has an article up right now where you can see this, but the left is going after Nate Silver. Nate Silver has been a man of the left, but he is now being attacked as somebody who's paid by Peter Thiel, the famous Silicon Valley entrepreneur. He works for the betting markets. He's manipulating betting markets is the accusation. He's doing anything but accurately describing reality. And that's an affliction of our political culture. It truly is. And that's not unique to the left. It's happening on the left. If you dare describe reality, you are rooting for a particular reality. It's like the whole world has turned into LeVar Ball. You guys remember LeVar Ball? When I was at ESPN, he was a big figure there for a year or two. LeVar Ball, the father of LaMelo, all the Ball brothers, was famous for saying, speak it into existence. What's this thing he told Stephen A. Smith? Undefeated, never lost. LeVar Ball thought if you say it, it becomes true. Speak it into reality. That's what everybody in politics wants you to do now. If you accurately describe reality, in this case, Nate Silver, you're accused of trying to manipulate reality. I even feel that happens. I know that happens on the right. When I said that Ron DeSantis didn't have it or that he wore lifts in his boots, then people think that I'm doing that because I hate Ron DeSantis and I wanted that to be reality. No. I like Ron DeSantis, but I'm accurately describing reality. If I come back on Wednesday and tell you, I don't think Donald Trump had a good debate, and Kamala Harris may come out polling better after this debate, there'll be people that say, Will, you hate Donald Trump. What's wrong with you? You're rooting for Kamala Harris, you secret rhino or lefty. And I'm going to be like, hey, can accurately win in the real world unless you understand the real world. Describing reality is not rooting for reality. That's what's happening now to Nate Silver. How dare he objectively tell you where he thinks it is right now in the race for president? But there are storms ahead. That is a Tuesday night debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. But why are the seas changing? I'm going to give you, or what evidence do I have besides polling that the seas are changing? I'm going to give you 4 reasons. 1, Joe Biden is campaigning for Kamala Harris, and he is campaigning in the Rust Belt, Michigan, Wisconsin. Now, for a lot of this race, she's tried to distance herself. She still is. And I imagine tomorrow night she will try to distance herself from Joe Biden. But yet now she's employing Biden to hit the campaign trail. I think that's evidence of desperation. I think that's an acknowledgement of the shifting winds. 2, the media. Now, the media is always playing a propagandist role, but it's getting a bit more desperate. I want to show you something. I found this fascinating. Here's the front page of CNN.com. This has been bugging me for a while now. This is the lead story, okay? The headline reads, Trump warms up for debate by threatening to jail election officials. That's a heck of a headline. I was curious. I was like, what? Trump threatens to jail election officials. For what it's worth, by the way, this is marked as the lead headline on CNN.com. Now, I think it's fascinating. They button it with what's called a subhead in the news. So underneath it, there's another headline, and that one's marked analysis. But they both link to the same article by a guy named Stephen Collison. And his job, and I've noticed this for a while now, and there's a reason I'm telling you about a no-name named Stephen Collison writing at CNN, because his job seems to be to guise subjectivity as objectivity, to help package analysis as reporting. You go through this, for example, and there's a quote in there where it says, Trump praised Vladimir Putin as a chess player. Well, Trump described Vladimir Putin as a chess player. He didn't praise him. That's like, yeah, Putin is a chess player. We talked about it last week here. Why did he endorse Kamala Harris? I don't know. He's playing chess. You have to be able to describe reality without it being necessarily something that you're cozying up to or complimenting or praising. Here's another great example. This happened last week after we signed off. So you guys saw this probably. J.D. Vance was accused when it comes to the school shooting in Georgia of saying school shootings are, and this was the quotes, just a fact of life. And in that's the implication that surrender, deal with it, America. School shootings are a fact of life. But that's not what he said. Here's what J.D. Vance said when it came to that school shooting in Georgia.
I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets.
And he goes on from there to provide what he thinks are solutions or remedies to school shooting. But he says, I don't like this. I wish this were not, but it is a fact of life. Cancer is a fact of life. That doesn't mean I'm rooting for cancer or surrendering to cancer. Once again, you acknowledge reality in order to solve reality. But the left used that as a cudgel to say that J.D. Vance, if not pro-school shooting, cool with school shooting. It's the same playbook as very fine people. Take it out of context, warp it into something else. That was a hoax, which you still have to hammer home because people don't know. Take a poll in the street and people don't know. Donald Trump did not call Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. In fact, he explicitly said they are not very fine. Shootings, just a fact of life. And when CNN packages this as analysis, this Stephen Collison, Trump wants to jail people, election officials, it is more powerful propaganda than Joy Reid. It's more powerful propaganda than Rachel Maddow or even a lefty CNN commentator on television. Why? Because when you're watching or listening to that, everyone knows, I'm getting bias. And okay, fine. When you listen to me, I encourage you. Will has his opinions. You hear Will's opinions. You can discount, fact check, challenge Will's opinions. But if I pretend like they're not opinions, which is incredibly dishonest, it's more powerful. So CNN packages this as though it's a fact. Now, Trump took to Truth Social, and he did say this. He said this about jailing opponents, or however they framed it. Cease and desist. I, together with my attorneys and legal scholars, am watching the sanctity of the 2024 presidential election very closely because I know better than most the rampant cheating and skullduggery that has taken place by Democrats in the 2020 presidential election. It was a disgrace to our nation. Therefore, the 2024 election, where votes have just started to being cast, will be under the closest professional scrutiny. And when I win, those people who cheated will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences so that the depravity of justice does not happen again. We cannot let our country further devolve into a third world nation, and we won't. Please be aware that legal exposure extends to lawyers, political operatives, donors, illegal voters, and complicit election officials. Those involved in unscrupulous behavior will be sought out, caught, and prosecuted at levels unfortunately never seen before in this country. Now, Trump threatens to jail election officials, opponents, or Trump says the enforcement of the law will be pursued. Don't be up to any shenanigans or face the law. He's not talking about authoritarian Maduro tactics of putting his opponents in jail. He's talking about enforcing existing law, which we should. If there is cheating going on, and a heavy burden there lies to prove, if there is cheating going on, who doesn't want? Democrats? Republicans? Who wouldn't want enforcement? By the way, Dick Cheney endorses Kamala Harris. I think this is desperation. I think it's also fascinating that Dick Cheney and Bill Kristol and Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney are now voting Kamala Harris. And RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk are voting Donald Trump. Don't sell me anymore that there's far left and far right. It's on a neat little bipolar spectrum. It's not. We're living in the midst, I think, interestingly, of shuffled political lines. And then finally, fourth, I don't expect you to know who Aaron Rupar is, but he is incredibly influential for some reason on Twitter and places like that. He takes clips out of context. He's a cretinous liar. But he said in response to the New York Times Siena poll that 48% of this country is still with Donald Trump, and that represents a sick society. I'm telling you, it's getting desperate. The winds are shifting. Tomorrow night there will be a debate. It will be a storm, a sea change. It can wipe out all prior trends and directions of the wind. And I think it will be tough for both of them. I think it will be tough for Kamala Harris. I think it's going to be tough for Donald Trump. We'll break it down tomorrow here on the Will Cain Show. But for now, Donald Trump is in control of the race for president. They're eating ducks. They're eating cats. The impact of immigration in America coming up on the Will Cain Show. The Tunnel of Towers countless veterans' villages stand as a beacon of hope for those who've sacrificed everything. These facilities are committed to helping veterans achieve stability and independence by providing housing and services based on individual needs. Within the village, residents will find support and community among those who truly understand the meaning of service. With several veterans' villages either completed or in development nationwide, the foundation and its supporters believe in the power of unity and that no veteran should be left behind. Through its Homeless Veterans Program, these veterans' villages, and the National Case Management Network, the Tunnel of Towers Foundation has provided housing and supportive services to over 8,000 veterans since the program's inception. So join Tunnel of Towers in their goal to eradicate veteran homelessness. Support those who've given everything to this country, and you can do so by donating $11 a month to T2T.org. 95 cents of every dollar goes directly to helping America's heroes. That's T2T.org. Donate now. Eating ducks and cats. Next on the Will Cain Show.
I'm Dana Perino, co-host of The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom. Join me for my podcast, Perino on Politics. Listeners of Everything Will Be Okay will gravitate toward this podcast too. Every Monday, I'm going to talk to people I trust in politics as they tell me what they're seeing and thinking in the 2024 election cycle. As they prep me to cover the upcoming election, they'll prep you, the voters, too. Make sure you subscribe to this series on FoxNewsPodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts and leave a rating and review.
Trump.
She's a radical left Marxist, and she'll destroy our country.
Harris.
Unlike Donald Trump, I will always put the middle class first.
The ABC presidential debate simulcast on Fox News Radio with Democracy 24 pre- and post-debate reporting and analysis. Hosted by Jared Halpern and Jessica Rosenthal. The ABC presidential debate simulcast on Fox News Radio. Listen starting at 8 p.m. Tuesday at foxnewsradio.com and on the Fox News app.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday. Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you.
Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Thomas Young. Yo, Thomas, are you listening? Who says on Facebook, this guy is a sports announcer. What does he know about politics? Everything, Thomas. Everything. Now, you're right. I'm just a dude, right? I don't know if you're familiar with this dude, but I think you could, if you'd like, catch me on Fox and Friends Weekend. You can catch me filling in for Jesse Waters on Jesse Waters Primetime. I got you covered, Thomas. Sports or politics. But if you prefer somebody who, I don't know, has exclusively focused their life on the world of politics, may I present Karl Rove, David Axelrod? Or see you here tomorrow, again, on the Fox News Facebook page, Thomas Young. It's the Will Cain Show streaming live on the Fox News Facebook page, Fox YouTube, terrestrial radio, Apple, Spotify. By the way, over there on YouTube, Gage Evans says Lions win it all this year. Pretty good last night. Martin G. Washburn, back onto Facebook, says, this debate won't matter. It's a big waste of time. I don't think so, Martin. I don't think so. I think this debate will be big. And then back again to YouTube, Sharon Husby says, hello, Will from Maryland, eating cats. What the hell is wrong with these sickos? I have cats, and they are like family. It makes me so sick to hear that. Deport. All right. Here's the story. I'm going to bring up the guys in New York to help me walk through this story. The story is from Springfield, Ohio, where a town of 50,000 people has, according to reports, including the New York Times, which we can put up on your screen right now, it's reported on this, seen over 20,000 migrants, not illegal immigrants. Let's talk about that word for a minute, but 20,000 migrants arrive in Springfield, Ohio, a town of 50,000. Now, why did I say let's focus on migrants versus illegal? They're not illegal. They didn't come into this country illegally. They're part of a refugee program. And, you know, it's interesting. Hegseth and Duffy and I on Fox Friends Weekend are trying to be very intentional about our use of illegal immigrant versus migrant because for some reason the standard in journalism is to call everybody a migrant. Inaccurate, okay? 70% of what we're looking at is illegal immigration. So by the odds, you should say illegal immigrant. But some are migrant. And don't forget the migrants in this debate because refugee status and asylum status is a big part of the debate, right? An illegal immigrant crosses the border, claims asylum, and now they're a refugee. That is not everybody. And that's not the case with Haitians. And so we have an effect on America both through illegal immigration and through refugee and asylum cases, who are more accurately described as migrants. This is a migrant situation in Springfield, Ohio, where they are largely from Haiti. 20,000. Okay, the article we just put up for you in the New York Times talks about the effects of 20,000 Haitians arriving into a town of 50,000. What are those effects? I don't think we have this video, but if we do, 2 days can tell me. There's a video that arrived, okay, of the police in that town getting to a driveway where a lady is knelt over a dead cat. The reports in the local newspaper, because I don't trust things I see on Twitter anymore, okay? I need it verified. I need to see the source reporting. Is that this lady, and I don't want to, like, upset people, but the report is that she killed the cat. So I saw that, witness testimony, and it's pretty gruesome how she did so. Blunt. And was standing over the cat, and 2 days, just give me a yes or no on thumbs up or thumbs down if we have the video, because I'm gonna play it for people. We don't have the video, so I'll tell you what happens in the video. You can see it's all over social media. There are people, as the cops arrive, they arrest her. She's kneeling over this cat, and the people around her say she's eating the cat, which is just so unbelievable because, I mean, does it make it worse? I think it does.
Yeah.
That it would be a raw cat, that it's a raw cat? Like,
That's
I
brutal.
don't know. It's gross and bad, period. But just in a driveway eating a raw cat? What are we doing here? This is America, land of the problem is obesity, not starvation. And I want to pick up this comment from YouTube, Sharon Husby, who says, eating cats, what's wrong with these sickos? I have cats, and they are like family. It makes me so sick to hear that. Deport. So if you're ranking the Will Cain Show family on trust when I turn the microphone over to them, shockingly, it probably goes, clearly 2-A-Days number one, and shockingly, I can't believe I'm saying this, Young Establishment James number two, and then tinfoil Pat in dead last. Because I never know. I may get nothing. He may just clam up and be silent, or he may go on a 2-minute monologue. I don't know what I'm going to get, but let's just have fun. It's going to be like rolling the dice, going to the craps table. Who knows? In our morning meeting, you said what Sharon Husby said. You think, tinfoil, this is a issue that can change an election. You think Haitians eating cats in Springfield, Ohio changes votes. Tinfoil.
I think you should put a poll out and try to gauge. I'm telling you, everybody is going to go to your poll. They're going to go, yeah, it definitely changes the way, especially if you focus it on suburban women. I think it's going to change the way that they view immigration as a whole. If it's not just like, people coming over the border or whatever. So
the problem is, where do you put that poll out? Like, obviously, most people that follow me tend to agree with me. That's how social media works, right? And the people that matter are the people that don't know or don't have opinions yet about things. And you could, I think our comment section on Facebook and YouTube are pretty good. I think we have a cross-section of people. The problem is, I think that a lot of them are already polarized and they're in their camps. I don't know how many are sitting there going, I'm still waiting to be motivated. But I always love the audience, trust the audience, and I welcome them to jump in, to offer their opinion. I think this is a Twitter story. I'm not saying it should be. This is back to accurately describing reality versus what you want reality to be. I think it's a Twitter story. It probably should be a bigger story, and I'm going to explain to you why in a minute. But if Trump spends tomorrow night bringing up people eating ducks and cats, well, I think it's going to be spun as, what is he talking about? He's crazy. And then, by the way, then you'll have the corrective mechanism of people going, it's actually real what he's talking about, because it is real. But you're playing catch up. If you're explaining, you're losing. And so I am very doubtful that it is capable of changing votes. But you heard me mention ducks. It's not just cats. Because same town, Springfield, Ohio, man goes to a city council meeting. I want to play for you what he had to say about what's happening in public parks and so forth there in Springfield. Watch.
These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into... They flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, y'all can be comfortable with this. I don't know, who's getting paid from it. I don't even want to, seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them
Okay. Wild. It's hard for it not to be funny, but they're in the parks grabbing up ducks, cutting their heads off, and eating them. So cats and ducks, Haitian migrants, Springfield, Ohio. Now, I'm going to bring somebody else in from our morning meeting. Two-a-days was like, what's wrong with eating ducks? That was your reaction to this, Two-a-days? What's wrong with eating ducks?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been to Haiti multiple times, actually, and I've never seen the cat thing. I've seen ducks, but you're right in that.
Reports of cannibalism, by the way, in Haiti. Reports of cannibalism.
True.
In Haiti.
But yeah, I don't know. People eat ducks. I've eaten duck. The French eat ducks.
Two-a-days. Are you being serious?
No.
Yeah, I like duck hunting. I like to go duck hunting. I eat duck. Okay. By the way, duck's not the best. You really got to work on it to make it good. But this isn't a bunch of dudes out on the Red River taking down a couple of mallards and some widgeons to cook up come Christmas time. That's not what's going on. This is I think 2 days, if you and your Brooklyn friends were sitting around Prospect Park and you saw some dudes walk up to the pond and grab some resident ducks, you'd be like, what the hell is going on here? It's a difference between wild migratory ducks and the ducks in Central Park, man.
It's very true. You're right. They are cuter. I would say that. But yeah.
Also, at a minimum, there are hunting laws, and places stuff.
True.
Again, this is like you saying, it's dove season right now. At least in Texas, it's dove season. Isn't the pigeon like a form of a dove? Pigeon's like a big, fat, city-fied dove, right? Well, if I'm shooting dove out in a field in Gunner, Texas, that's one thing. But if I'm walking around the streets or the parks of New York with a net grabbing pigeons, and ripping their heads off, I think your reaction is different, dude. I don't think it's the same thing. So this guy, I think we have another clip, by the way, because I think this is good.
Yep.
Because so this is back to the should, okay, tinfoil. Should this be a bigger deal? Should people care? Maybe should it affect votes? I think this guy makes another statement that is pretty fascinating in sort of his attempt to be non-judgmental. He's putting it all on the politicians. He's trying not to be judgmental, which I think there is worthy judgment of these migrants, when he says the following.
And who is getting paid? Like, how much money is y'all really getting paid, like, to bring them over here? Like, I know it's deeper than them. I know that's where they come from, and that's what they do. That's their country. I don't know what they got going on over there, but they can't do that over here. And if y'all just getting paid from it and then y'all ain't doing nothing about it, I think that's super weird, bro. Y'all got to stand on business. Y'all got to really, like, step up. Like, it's lame, bro.
That's where they come from. That's what they do. They country is what he said. And which I would argue, I don't know that that's even, I'm country. I come from country. I don't know if I'm still country, but I used to be country. And that ain't what you do. You don't go to the public park and scoop up the resident ducks. But the acknowledgement there is a variance in culture, okay? And there is judgment. You can say some cultures are superior to others, and you shouldn't be going to parks, regardless of where you live, grabbing up the quasi-wildlife, the domesticated wildlife. But as a country, we should be asking ourselves at all times, what culture are we inviting in? Whether or not that's through open borders illegally or even through the legal migration process of accepting refugees. We have that conversation. We should have that conversation when it comes to bringing in people from Afghanistan, from Syria, from anywhere else, okay? And say, what do they buy into America? Do they want to be Americans? Are they share American values? These aren't just legitimate. I'm not even here to meet the minimum bar. These are important questions to ask about anybody that comes to this country, okay? The idea isn't, just come, yeah, I mean, safe haven, get a job. No. Do you value the culture of America? That is paramount. And that's what this issue is an illustration of. I'm doubtful that Tinfoil Pat is right. I know people love their pets, and that's his argument. Like, people love their pets. Will they project themselves into this lady eating a cat in a driveway in Springfield, Ohio? I'm doubtful. But they should understand this is the product of policy. Policy. Purposeful. Need me to prove it? I want you to listen to Kamala Harris as vice president in 2021.
That is why, also, starting with our administration, we gave TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitian migrants, 55,000. And then more recently, we extended temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian migrants for that very reason, that they need support, they need protection.
There you go. So that was 150. She rattled off 1,000, 20,000 of which are in Springfield, Ohio. Okay? It's not racist. It's not xenophobic. It's not even jingoistic to ask what any responsible politician should do. Do you serve? We talked with Gad Sad last week. Go back and listen to that episode of the Will Cain Show about suicidal empathy. Do you serve empathetically or for your own virtue signaling the people of Haiti, the people of the world, the people of the Middle East, or do you serve Americans? And are your policies helping or hurting Americans? And Americans, ducks, and cats. Let's break down the first weekend of professional football, plus get into Tyreek Hill detained before the Dolphins game. Next, with Ricky Cobb of the Ricky Cobb Show on Outkick, here on the Will Cain Show.
I'm Charles Payne. Listen to my Unstoppable Prosperity podcast so I can get you making money right now. Whether stocks are hitting new all-time highs or in free fall mode, opportunities abound. So why are so many potential investors still sitting on the sidelines? In a new season of my podcast, I'm going to get you in the game. After 38 years on Wall Street, I'm ready to impart some lessons and get you invested in the greatest wealth-generating machine in history. Listen anytime, everywhere at foxbusinesspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Trump.
She's a radical left Marxist, and she'll destroy our country.
Harris.
Unlike Donald Trump, I will always put the middle class first.
The ABC presidential debate simulcast on Fox News Radio with Democracy 24 pre- and post-debate reporting and analysis. Hosted by Jaron Halpern and Jessica Rosenthal. The ABC presidential debate simulcast on Fox News Radio. Listen starting at 8 p.m. Tuesday at foxnewsradio.com and on the Fox News app.
I'm Charles Payne. Listen to my Unstoppable Prosperity podcast so I can get you making money right now. Whether stocks are hitting new all-time highs or in free fall mode, opportunities abound. So why are so many potential investors still sitting on the sidelines? In a new season of my podcast, I'm going to get you in the game. After 38 years on Wall Street, I'm ready to impart some lessons and get you invested in the greatest wealth-generating machine in history. Listen anytime, everywhere at foxbusinesspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Detained prior to the Jags-Dolphins game, then goes off and leads the Dolphins to a victory. Dak Prescott's got a new contract, and Tom Brady makes his debut on Fox. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand. Just hit subscribe, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. I haven't watched First Take. I'm not tuned in today to sports. Not least on television. I would be curious to know, are they going all in on Tyreek Hill? Are they saying, once again, that cops are racist? Tyreek Hill, Dolphins wide receiver, one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL, driving to Hard Rock Stadium in Miami yesterday, was pulled over by police. He was detained. He was put face down on the concrete. He was handcuffed. Then he was sat down. 2 Dolphins teammates approached the cops, 4 cops, and said, "What's going on?" Tried to intervene. One of them, Calais Campbell, was also cuffed for a moment. Ultimately, all of them were released. Tyreek made it to the game, and the Dolphins won over the Jags. But this threatens to be a massive story about race, and a massive story about policing. And I will say for a moment, undercutting that story, I think being responsible about that story is Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill, who said, "I don't know what happened. I don't know what the deal is. I love cops. I want to be a cop when I'm done." So he's not trying to turn this into a national debate a la Colin Kaepernick. But there are those today, I'm sure, that will. And that will be inappropriate. Let's get into why with the host of the Ricky Cobb Show. He's the founder of Super 70 Sports, a super popular X account for many years now. He's now joined Outkick. You can catch the Ricky Cobb Show every day. Today, he's here on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Ricky?
How's it going, Will? Pleasure to be here, man.
So I've got a lot of thoughts on this Tyreek story. But what are your thoughts? He's detained. He's put on the ground. 4 cops. It's pretty aggressive. It is aggressive because there's a lot of viral video out there from fans who got it on their phones. But I have a lot of thoughts. But what do you think, Ricky?
Well, the optics are terrible, right? When you see it circulating and this guy's face down and handcuffed with multiple officers over him, your mind naturally gravitates towards what kind of terrible thing is happening to this man. I think we need to wait a day or two, let the facts emerge. I know it's a hot take culture that we're in, Will, and everybody wants to jump out and get at the forefront of it and get clicks and all of that stuff. But I just don't think that we know all the details yet. And until we do, it's going to be impossible to have an educated take on it.
So, first of all, let me just say bravo. I think it's the only right take to what we just heard from Ricky Cobb. I think if we're being human, we're being real, we can do something. We can acknowledge that we all have emotional reactions to very little information. And I do, right? I even see it and I'm like, woo, that's egregious. Now, let me say, that doesn't make me anti-cop, clearly. I can acknowledge reality and go, this just happened like a month or two ago with Scotty Scheffler, as he was approaching a major. And we've seen the video. We know what happened more or less there with Scotty Scheffler. He tried to pull in, and the cop was over-aggressive. And the cop just, I'm not even saying he's a bad cop. He had a bad day or had a bad set of choices, the cop right there with Scotty Scheffler. So it can happen. There are, thousands upon thousands of cops, all capable of making bad decisions of varying levels of judgment all throughout the country. That could have happened with Tyreek Hill. And your emotional reaction is, wow, that's awful aggressive. But then you need to slow down and go, all right, but what's the rational side say? Well, the rational side is what you said. I have very incomplete information. I have no idea what happened here. I don't know why he was pulled over. I know it says they're saying traffic violation. By the way, what is he driving? Was that a Lambo? I don't know what that was. It was really, really nice.
Sweet ride. Sweet ride.
Tyreek says that he was respectful and didn't say anything, and complied. He says that. I mean, I don't know if I should trust or doubt Tyreek, right? Tyreek doesn't have a sterling past. That all factors into what we sit there. He's been in trouble for domestic abuse when he was with the Chiefs, or maybe even before he was with the Chiefs. And so, all this plays in, but ultimately you get to a place where very few people want to get because it's not an exciting take to put on X or to put on television, which is you don't know what happened. And I just wish that Jamel Hill, meanwhile, tweets out, Dolphins owner Stephen Ross has supported legislation to give police immunity. I mean, she not only passed go and collect 200, she went around the board twice. She immediately decided based upon the available information here, the cops were in the wrong. And it's indictment of police, and we should carry that over to people that support those policies. And, oh, by the way, we should also go after Hill's owner of the Miami Dolphins, Hill's boss, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Ross. Like, that's what people will do, not what you did, Ricky.
Well, there's a rush to fit it into whatever your chosen narrative is. And people have a tendency to take whatever is in the news and fit it into the box that they want it to go in order to push whatever the story is that they're invested in telling. And so something like this that's so visually powerful, let's be honest, a black man face down on the pavement, 3 cops over him, a celebrity handcuffed. I mean, that is red meat for anybody who wants to jump to any sort of conclusion that they wish. Right. And they're going to do it. We're already seeing it. It's a potentially racially explosive issue. But again, Will, as you said, we just don't have the facts yet. We know that it was a traffic offense. It's hard to imagine what kind of traffic offense would necessitate what we saw, which is very troubling. I think pretty much anybody can agree.
Well, we could imagine it though. I just want to push back a little. You can imagine it. I mean, he could be driving reckless or fast. NFL wide receiver Rashee Rice just did that in Dallas, or he's accused of doing that. He's not convicted of it, but arrested. Bad deal in Dallas where he's going incredibly fast. I'm not saying that's what happened with Tyreek. My only point is we can put ourselves into the cop's shoes and imagine something. But I don't jump to that either. I shouldn't jump to that side. I also shouldn't jump to the clearly Tyreek was reckless driving or he mouthed off. I don't know. That's the point. I don't know.
There's a wide range, right, of things that this could have been. It could have been the most innocuous moving violation you could think of, or it could be something spectacularly terrible that when we learn what it is, we're like, oh, okay, well, suddenly you see it differently. I think you're correct, Will. We just do not know. And until we get the information, which I'm sure light will be shed on it sooner rather than later, then we can comment with some intelligence on this. But again, it's a race to get out of the blocks and have the best take or the most controversial take immediately, or to try to politicize it to your advantage in some way or another and use it as your bully pulpit. So That's what's going on now.
Yeah.
And until we get more information, people would probably be better served to just tune it out and not even really look at what people have to say about it today, because it's all conjecture.
This is for what it's worth. And I don't think we're in this climate anymore. We could be. I don't know. This is the exact kind of story when I spent my 5 years at ESPN that would get you branded racist. It wasn't just trying to get clicks. It was trying to buy an insurance policy that no one would ever call you a racist. Like if you run out there quick and blame it on racism, then no one calls you a racist. And really mostly all I ever did on these kinds of cases that came up over and over when I was at ESPN is have the take that you and I are saying right now. Well, you don't know. You don't know that that's a noose in Bubba Wallace's garage. You know, whatever. You don't know, da-da-da-da-da. Oh, you're a racist for not immediately deeming it racism. I don't think we're there popularly anymore, but there was a time. That was what it wasn't just clicks. It was insurance policies that forced everyone to adopt that point of view. All right, I want to ask you about this, Ricky, as well. I got my Dak Prescott jersey out here. I thought I was going on Tommy Lahren Fearless show today on Outkick, and I was going to wear this because she says men shouldn't wear jerseys. But Dak, 6 years, $240 million. What do you think, Ricky?
I think the expectations are sky high. They're as high as the salary, Will. And the Cowboys, I don't have to tell you, we're going on 30 years now. Jerry Jones has made a lot of money. Jerry Jones is the most influential man in the NFL. Jerry Jones has been light on the results that Cowboys fans crave so desperately. So, Zach, I've never been a huge Dak Prescott guy. I think he's obviously a very good quarterback. I've never considered him to be the absolute top tier guy. I've always thought he was just kind of right at the top of the second tier, maybe the bottom of the first tier. But this is
That's
it.
Fair.
His legacy is going to be determined by what happens over the course of this contract.
Okay, but would you have given him the money, Ricky? Would you have given him this contract? And by the way, I said 6. It's 4 years, $240 million. It's $60 million a year.
$60 million.
Would you have given him this contract?
What's the alternative? He's been there for a long time. He's the guy. If I was starting from scratch, I don't think he's necessarily the guy that I would want to invest in, but let's face it. Jerry Jones isn't getting any younger. He's the guy who is there. He's been there for a long time. He's obviously very talented. I think they've just got to ride with him. They're at a point where we're past the point of no return with Dak Prescott as the Cowboys guy. So Jerry certainly has the money. I think if I were in Jerry's shoes, I think I would have probably taken the same route, honestly.
Yes, you have to. Here's the thing. People do this. And you kind of did it there for a minute. That's why I pressed you on, would you give him the contract? I've never thought of him as whatever, X. And the easiest one is to say the best quarterback in the NFL, much less the best ever, because now he is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Not only that, he is the highest paid player ever in the NFL. But he won't be for long. This is exactly how it goes when it comes to quarterbacks. And you had to, because this is the price of paying for, and I agree with you somewhat, bottom of the first tier, top of the second tier, which puts him somewhere around 7, 8, 9, 10 in that range. Top 10 quarterback, but probably closer to 10 than to 1. And this is the price to have one of those guys. And the next guy who's in that same range that comes up, guess what he'll get? $61 million a year or more. Right? Jordan Love played half a season for Green Bay and got $55 million a year. It just shows the importance of the position and the scariness of not having a guy like that, even if he can't win the Super Bowl. Because God forbid you end up the New York Giants with Daniel Jones, right? Or name your NFL franchise. This is the cost of doing business in the NFL.
Absolutely. Is he overpaid relative to the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and guys like that? Yeah, he is. He's overpaid talent-wise compared to quarterbacks who are better. And I agree with you. I wouldn't put him in the top 5. But what's Dallas's alternative really? What's their alternative? To overpay somebody else and bring somebody else in and have that person learn the system and try to go forward from there? He won't be the highest paid player in the NFL for very long. You're spot on with that. This contract is, it's a big old contract, but Dak Prescott was the best option that the Cowboys had currently. And I think that for all the criticism the contract's going to receive, and as I've said, I'm not really a Dak guy, I think it's the right move. And I think that men can wear jerseys as well. So we'll rock that jersey fearlessly.
Just not the jerseys the Giants wore in week 1. I saw your tweet, which was hilarious, about they looked like Michigan procreated with the Montreal Canadiens and ended up, and by the way, they were first cousins and ended up with the New York Giants in week 1. It was a horrible looking uniform. I also saw a clip of it, and it looked like they're pantsless. I think it was their punter with his Red Sox up to his knees and his jersey untucked, and it looks like he's playing football without pants on. Let's talk about you, Rick. You got the Ricky Cobb show on Outkick. I didn't know this. So you're now at Outkick. At one time, you were at Vice. I don't think I knew that. And you had a connection to Jimmy Kimmel. They produced your show at Vice? Is that right?
Yeah. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, Jimmy Kimmel reached out to me and was interested in seeing if we could turn the Twitter feed into some sort of a television program. And ultimately, we did. We lasted for a season over on Vice. I always joke that Vice is like going into the FBI witness protection program. Hard to find you over there. But yeah, I co-produced a show with Jimmy Kimmel that was on Vice called the Super Maximum Retro Show. And I caught heat. I caught heat for that from people that disagreed with Kimmel's politics. And obviously, I know the direction you're going here. Coming to Outkick, I've been catching heat from people who don't like their perception of Outkick's politics. So I've tasted a little.
What do you mean heat? Is that on your X replies, or did you hear from Jimmy Kimmel
for the show?
Yeah, for the heat you're getting now for joining Outkick.
Oh, the heat that I'm joining that. No. That's not from Jimmy Kimmel. That's just from people who don't like Outkick, and I got the same heat for being aligned with Jimmy Kimmel. I haven't gotten any criticism from any name people at all, but the criticism comes from the general public because we're so tribal now in our culture that people think that if you are aligned in any way with someone that they dislike, then you must be a terrible person. And I've seen it from the left, and I saw it from the right when I was involved in the project with Kim.
Well, it hasn't stopped you from getting good guests. You had Joe Theismann today, I think, right? I saw you've had a lot of good guests. Maybe it was last week. You had Jim Everett, which I watched that because I love the Jim Everett, Jim Rome moment, and you talked to him about that moment. Which, by the way, what was surprising about that interview is he told you that they had talked about it a little bit ahead of time, meaning not that it was a work, that they had talked about the fact that Rome had been calling him Chris, and Rome had apparently insinuated, maybe during the commercial break to him, I'm going to call you Chris, and Everett was like, have fun with it a little bit, okay. But Everett was upset that he called him Chris Everett too many times. Like he felt like, and then you watch the real clip, and it was only like 3 times before Everett lost his temper. So it's like, I don't know, if what he told you behind the scenes is true, he sure got to the end of his rope quick with like 2 or 3 invocations of Chris Everett before he flipped the table and tackled Jim Rome. And made Jim Rome, by the way. If I'm Jim Rome, I'm praising Jim Everett all the way to the bank for that moment.
Yeah, it's the best thing that ever happened to Jim Rome if we subscribe to the no such thing as bad publicity philosophy. He didn't know he was going to be on Rome's show when he got there. He thought that he was going to be doing a different program, and then he found out that it was
Roy
Rome.
Firestone.
Yeah, and Roy Firestone is kind of the antithesis of Jim Rome. So you think you're going to sit down and Roy Firestone's going to try to make you cry with some poignant questions, and instead you got this Jim Rome taunting you situation unfolding. But yeah, I've been blessed with some great guests. I had Brett Favre on last week. I've had Darryl Strawberry, Dale Murphy, Boomer Esiason, a whole bunch of great guests. So it's been a lot of fun out of the gate with so many people that I've been genuinely interested in speaking to.
That's great. And you can check that out at Outkick, the Ricky Cobb Show. By the way, I have a few more questions. Vice, it's interesting you say that's like going into the witness protection program. I'm always been fascinated by Vice, Ricky. Like, and I don't have I'm not grinding an axe. When they first came out, I was like, this is really kind of interesting what they're doing, specifically sending those reporters out into like really odd places of the world to do, weird stories. It was interesting. And they kept raising money. And then I started noticing like it gets very little engagement on Twitter and all. It gets very little. And you start wondering, what was the audience? Like, I'm sure there was some audience, but I have to wonder, looking back on that, how much of that was a con? Meaning, were they paying for audience? What were they doing? Because its implosion and fall off, it's really only surpassed by, I would say, Deadspin or something like that. Like, where you were here, up here, now you're way down here. And it makes me wonder how real the up here was for Vice.
It's a good question. I was no expert on Vice by any means when the opportunity came along. You're in my shoes. I'm a community college professor, and suddenly it's like, hey, you're going to get a TV show. Where's it going to be? I think Vice might be a good fit. Well, okay. My concern has always been with what I do, less so than the platform. And so people perceive what they're going to perceive about you based on whatever they're going to base it on. That's one thing that I'm sure you know better than I do, Will. But as I get into this, the show's been on for about a month now. And the thing that I'm learning very quickly is that people are going to perceive what they're going to perceive. And lots of times that has little to no basis, sometimes zero basis in reality. But you can't really disabuse somebody of a position that they've taken on faith. And I've always said, when I was at Vice, it was like, hey, look, judge me on the quality of this show. That's the only thing that I have any control over. Same thing with Outkick.
Yeah.
People say, well, I don't like Clay Travis or whatever. I happen to like Clay Travis. But people who say, well, I don't like Clay Travis or whatever, it's like, well, I'm not Clay Travis. I'm not Jimmy Kimmel either. I'm me. It's like, I understand if you don't like Jimmy Kimmel, well, that's okay. Last time I checked, my name wasn't Jimmy Kimmel. So, what I would like for people to, judge the merits of what I do on the quality of the program. And I'm certainly grateful to Clay Travis and Outkick for giving me an opportunity. I can say that, I have a lot more creative control at Outkick than I had over the Kimmel project. And that has been very gratifying.
No, you're not those guys. You look instead like a extra from Dazed and Confused. I mean, you're living the 70s look right here, or a southern rock band.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of like, you look like Marshall Tucker Band. Like, let's go ahead and like if we could take the Marshall Tucker Band or the Pure Prairie League and turn it into human form, it's Ricky Cobb, Pure Prairie League Band. And by the way, you got a stand-up video game in your background. What is that? Is that Frogger? I'm only going to be happy if it's like Frogger or Galaga.
All right. Well, then you're going to be happy. It's Galaga. Although it's loaded with 400 games. It's got Frogger on it and Pac-Man and a whole bunch of games on it. So it's a Galaga console. Yeah.
There we go. All right. Last topic with Ricky, since he's new here at Outkick, which is a subsidiary of Fox. He's under, let's be real, a ton of conflict of interest when I ask him this question. So no pressure, Ricky. And what do you think about Tom Brady and his debut at Fox?
Man, Tom Brady's debut was as anticipated, I think, as any of the rookie players' debuts, if not more. I don't know what people are expecting. I mean, he was fine. He was fine. He was okay. He certainly is going to get better. as time goes on. We
Yeah.
know that he's got the work ethic and he's got the football knowledge, and he cleans up real nice. So I don't have any reason to expect Tom Brady to be anything less than good. Is he going to be as good as Greg Olsen? Greg Olsen, by popular acclaim, was pretty damn good. Is Brady going to be as good as Greg Olsen? I don't know, but Tom obviously qualified for the gig by being the greatest quarterback who ever drew a breath of air. And he's going to get room, clearly, to grow in this position for as long as he wishes to do it. But I would say for an initial outing, I don't know if people thought he was going to come down and, part the sea and change broadcasting as we knew it. If they were expecting that, it didn't happen. But certainly a competent first performance, and I think he's going to be pretty good.
So I think my analysis is the same, and I'm rooting for Brady, not because I work for Fox. Like, I've just grown to like Brady. I never met the guy, but I've grown to like Brady and his commitment to excellence. I don't know that was excellent, but it was a fine debut, and I do think he'll get much better. And I'll be specific. I think that, and I watched the whole game. He did the Cowboys-Browns. I think a little more personality and enthusiasm for the moment in the way that was harnessed by Tony Romo. So, for example, if Brandon Aubrey kicks a 66-yard field goal, I think that would tie the NFL record, that's a big moment. Like, let's get excited. And if he's going to attempt, after a penalty negates that, a 71-yarder, which he didn't end up doing, but they ran him out there, that's a huge moment. And it's okay to be, like, really excited and meet that moment. When Dak Prescott has a blitzer in his face, and he throws drifting backwards over the top to Brandon Cooks for like a 30-yard touchdown, that's a huge moment. Like, let me feel it a little bit. And you don't have to overdo it. There are guys that overdo it. But I don't think you should underdo it either. Like, and then, more importantly than that, though, you're cerebrally probably the best to ever do it. So I do want added value. Like, how did it happen? Break it down. And give me the thing that I can't see with my own eyes, even if I'm not just a casual viewer. So I want to know, like, what do you think the quarterback saw? What coverages? And so therefore, how did he manipulate the defense? Or how did he read it? Or what gave him trouble from the defense? All of that I know Tom Brady can do. And he will do. And maybe we shouldn't expect that from game one, right? Like, everybody has to. I'm not the broadcaster. I wasn't the broadcaster I am today when I first started. That's just a fact of life. It's just how it works, right? So I'm way better at Fox and Friends than I was 4 years ago when I started doing Fox and Friends. I was way better at First Take a year or two into that. When I started, all of us, I'm not just talking about me, all of us are like that. And he'll get way, way, way better. You know why I think I believe that? Because the things that I'm asking for from him aren't unavailable to him. He is those things. He's smart. He has excitement. He has personality. And he'll get there with the reps. The game will slow down, and he'll get enthusiastic and give me deeper insight.
Yeah, I'm not worried at all about his long-term prognosis as an announcer. He's going to be very good, I think. Is he going to be as good of an announcer as he was a quarterback? Well, that's a big ask, right?
Well,
because in order to do that, he's got to be the greatest. He's got to be the greatest color guy that there's ever been, and there have been some really good ones. So I don't know if
who's number one. By the way, if Brady were having to climb those ranks, right? Let's do it together. Number one, and then you're super 70s guy, so I can only imagine. Number one's Madden, right? Madden's the best to ever do it in the color seat.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then after Madden, then the real interesting conversation begins. I'm just brainstorming to put them on the table. Of course, you've got Romo, Aikman, Collinsworth doing it now. Herb Street's doing it now on Thursday nights with Al Michaels. In the past, you've had, help me out here, especially in the 70s and 80s, who was the crew
Olsen
on the other network?
Yeah, I always
Merlin Olsen
with Dick Enberg was always very solid. Bob Trumpy was pretty good back in the day. There have been a lot of
Don Meredith.
Yeah, Dandy Don Meredith. So there are guys who have been great and had their own inimitable style as well. And so it's going to be hard for Brady to stand out. I think what you're saying, what he really has to sell is that nobody has probably ever looked at the chess pieces on the chessboard with greater authority than Tom Brady. And so I want him to be able to bring that kind of knowledge and distill it to me in a way that I can at least digest some of it and be a smarter fan at the end of a Tom Brady broadcast by even a fraction than I was at the beginning. If he can tap into that, then he's going to be cooking. But I think we've got to realize the first year, you were saying, Will, like in your own journey as a broadcaster, and I'm early into my journey as a broadcaster, and I am hyper aware of how much room for growth I have as I'm hosting the Ricky Cobb Show. So, you've been at it for a good long while. It doesn't come overnight. It doesn't just come in a few weeks. And I think we've kind of got to give him a grace period. And we'd like to see a nice trajectory as the season goes on. But I think we got to realize this is his rookie year, and he's a rookie. This isn't 20 plus years, 7 Super Bowl Tom Brady. This is a guy who is in a new environment. And yes, as you said, he possesses all the requisites, but it's going to take a little while for him to piece all of that together.
Well, you're doing great at the launch of the Ricky Cobb Show. You may have a lot of room to grow, but you have a great starting point. And everybody should check it out on Outkick, the Ricky Cobb Show. Loved having you on the Will Cain Show today, Ricky. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Will. Pleasure.
All right. Again, check them out over at Outkick.com. Maybe we should do that tomorrow. Maybe we should do the top 5 color commentators in the history of football. We forgot the offensive lineman that was on Monday Night Football forever. What's his name? Is it Dan? What's two-a-days and tinfoil Pat and Jim? Dan?
Dan Deerhoff?
Deerdorf.
That sounds close, but not right. Deerdorf. Yeah, he was good. Yeah. Dan Fouts was in there for a while. Yeah, we need to do a top 5. If Brady were to climb the rankings, what does he have to scale? Do that tomorrow. And more as we get you ready for Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, the first and only debate tomorrow. We'll talk about it on The Will Cain Show.